Welcome, North Tama art students. This is Mrs. Meinert's home art lessons. I'm sure you will notice I'm sporting a little different of a look today. Periodically, I will be bringing us some entertainment and character with our art lessons. Today we are going to be learning about the famous artist Vincent Van Gogh. And some of you may be familiar with him from other art lessons. This is one of his self-portraits. Did a pretty good job, I think. He was definitely a redhead. He lived in the 1800s and was a very struggling artist. In fact, he only ever sold one artwork throughout his entire life. He struggled and struggled and struggled, but he never stopped painting. He always enjoyed painting very lively, beautiful scenes with bright colors. And in fact, one of his paintings has recently sold at auction in 2017 for $111 million. So I'd say he's done a pretty good job for himself. He was known as an impressionist painting, which means he would paint the feeling of a place, the light, the colors, the atmosphere, rather than worrying about it looking like a photograph. He actually once cut off his ear in a fit of anger, which you'll see here. Too bad for that. So he was definitely a struggling artist. He had a lot of issues with mental health throughout his life. Today we are going to be looking at one of his famous artworks known as the bedroom at Arles. Just like you and I not being able to go anywhere, he actually spent several years at a mental health society to try and figure out his emotions. And he could not travel anywhere during that time. So he did his best to find inspiration outside his window or in the places around him. For example, in this painting, Bedroom at Arles, which is the town where he was stationed at that time, he did a lovely painting of his bedroom. Okay? So today we are going to be learning how to use perspective to create that three-dimensional room and also add objects into it. You can certainly plan on drawing a room in your house, maybe your bedroom, maybe your kitchen, living room, or you can draw a room that doesn't exist in your house, maybe an imaginary room you'd like to have to hang out in right now. So today what we are going to be using is just some very basic materials. Throughout all of these lessons, remember, you don't have to have fancy things at home. You can use whatever you have. I will be using just some paper, pencil, a Sharpie marker, and some colored markers. You can use any drawing tool you have. You can also add paint or color to this. Okay? So when we are creating a room, we need to think of a couple of things. First, we're going to think of perspective, which is where you see things or the way the viewer sees things. In other words, things that are closer in the picture are always going to be bigger. Things that are farther are always going to be smaller. We can see this in Van Gogh's painting where he creates his bedroom because you can see that the end board of the bed is obviously much bigger since it's closer to the viewer, as if you were standing in the room. And the headboard of his bed is much farther and therefore smaller. We can also see this if we look at the two chairs in the painting. One chair is much bigger than the other chair. This one is closer to us. This one is farther. If we were to put both chairs next to each other, they're probably the same size. So we want to think about size for our objects. We also want to think about that very important term known as a vanishing point. And this should be reviewed for many of us. We've used this in the past. We were learning it before. And this is where all of your lines are going to converge, remember. It's that magic point in our paper that if we follow it, we will be able to make anything look three-dimensional. Okay? So today, to start our dream rooms, we are going to make sure you have some sort of a drawing paper. Could be anything. Could be a notebook if you have that. On my notebook paper, I want to create first the back wall of my room. I'm going to use a pencil for these first few steps. To make my back wall, I'm just drawing a square in the middle of my paper with a lot of room around it to make my other walls. After I've drawn my square, I'm going to place that magic vanishing point in there. I want to plop it somewhere in the middle. Okay? Now what I want to do is use my pencil and possibly a ruler if you have one at home. If you don't, I'll show you how I'm just kind of using my hand as my guiding tool. And I'm going to draw from my vanishing point out to the corner of my box and all the way to the edge of my paper. I'm going to again go back to my vanishing point, go to the corner, make sure this would be a line going through there, and all the way out to the edge of my paper. Same thing here. Vanishing point all the way out to the edge, vanishing point all the way out to the edge. And if you have a little bump in there, hey, no big deal. Either erase it or make it part of the room. Maybe that's a place where the carpet's a little bunched up. Okay? Whew, man, I don't know how you guys deal with these beards. It's getting a little itchy on me here. So, today what we're going to be doing, now I have my back wall, I have a ceiling, I have one wall, I have the floor, and I have my other wall. First thing I want to place into my room is a bed. We always think of our basic shapes. If you're not knowing how to draw something in this room you are creating, always go back to what your basic shapes could be. So for example, if I look again at Van Gogh's image, and I look at how he drew his bed, I can imagine a basic shape here as a rectangle or a square for the head and foot of my bed. So that is where I'm going to start. If you want your bed to be in the middle of your room, you're going to start somewhere in the middle of your paper. If you want your bed to be more to the side, you'll go over here. First thing I'm going to do is just draw a rectangle, and I want that rectangle to be lower down in my picture because this is the end of my bed. Remember, you don't have to be perfect when you're drawing your shapes. If you see, I always make a lot of lines so that I can find the right one. And I'm drawing in pencil, so whatever I don't like, I can always erase later. So now I have what is the end of my bed, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is use my vanishing point. Same way I drew through my corners to make my back wall, I'm going to draw from my corners to my vanishing point here. And you can see I'm doing this without a ruler. I keep my hand against the paper so it's steady. And I'm going to find the other corner and draw to my vanishing point. So now hopefully it's starting to look like a rectangle coming out of the distance. Next thing I want to do to turn it into a bed is create a smaller rectangle. So I have my bigger rectangle here. I'm going to make my rectangle by first drawing a horizontal line that connects both of those diagonal lines. And now I will draw the rest of my rectangle there. Okay? So now I have the end of my bed, the top of my bed, and like the headboard. This is where you would probably put pillows or something like that. Okay? Basic bed. You can get super crazy. You could have like spindles. You could have some decorative edges like we saw in Van Gogh's painting. Again, you don't have to be drawing a room. That is a bedroom. It could be a kitchen, a living room, wherever you want to hang out. Okay? So now I have a bed. So let's talk about next how to do a chair. Again, if I always go back to my basic shapes, I'm going to think about if I were going to make a chair, what would the basic shape be for me to start my chair? Okay, so let's start with a square. Everybody can draw a square. Okay, now I want to make my chair and the rest of it look 3D. So if this is, for example, the legs on the chair, okay, here's a nice little, this is my daughter's chair. So if I imagine that as this part right here, okay, I'm now going to make the backrest that would be on the chair. Okay, so I'm going to do that by making a skinny rectangle. Okay, square rectangle. Now I need to use my vanishing point. Again, this should be a review for most of you since we have used it this year several times. So just try and refresh your memory as you watch me drawing. Okay, so I'm drawing from one corner all the way up to my vanishing point. I'm going to draw from this corner up to my vanishing point. Okay, if you want to also make this part look 3D, I can go from this corner of my rectangle to the vanishing point, and this corner to the vanishing point. Okay, then I want to go from this inside corner to the vanishing point. This will give me my seat, or the place where I would sit. All right? Now, since I'm getting a lot of lines there, let's go ahead and use this to help clarify it for you. So here's my rectangle here. Here's my square shape that I'm using to make that part. I've now drawn these to my vanishing point, so I'm going to go over them with Sharpie. I've drawn this to my vanishing point. Okay, remember, once I've drawn my diagonal to my vanishing point, I need to find the parallel, which means they're going to run alongside each other. Parallel lines will never converge. So, if this one's up and down, the parallel that will connect my diagonal is also up and down. If this one is side to side, the parallel that will connect these diagonals is also side to side. Okay? So, now I have, example, this would be the place where I would sit. I could also draw from this corner down to get the back leg of my chair. Okay? And then I have my rectangle here. I have my diagonals that I've drawn to there. Make the back seat, or the back rest of my chair. Okay? If I want to get the rungs of my chair, remember I want to go in perspective there. So these would be the back rest of my chair. Here's the back leg of my chair. Here's again the place where I'm going to sit. Okay, so now I have a chair that looks like it's sitting in the space next to my bedroom. Other things you can add, again, that could be something that's really there. It could be something that maybe you wish was there. I don't know. If you want to draw another room, this is my other wall. I'm going to start with a vertical line, making an opening. Again, I'm going to go to my vanishing point. And if my vanishing point were guiding me, let me get my pencil here. Okay. If I use my vanishing point to guide me, that's going to be the top part or opening of the door. Okay. If I want to get the inside part, that's going to be a horizontal line because now I have a wall here and then I have a secondary wall in here. Like I'm opening up into another space in my room. Maybe this is the doorway from your living room to your bedroom. Maybe it is a doorway to another outdoor space. If I want to, I can make a little horizon. I want to make sure my horizon is on that same line as my first horizontal line. Maybe out here we have trees. Maybe this is like a patio or a deck to an outdoor space. Should be nice to have a deck in my room. I wouldn't mind that. Okay. Other things. If you draw anything on this back wall, like a window, for example, you just draw the basic shape. You don't need to add anything to it. You don't need to follow your vanishing point because it's on the flat wall that our vanishing point lies on. Other things you can do include dressers. Maybe you want to have a TV on the side. If I want to do something like that, I'm going to need to follow my vanishing point for the top and bottom of the TV. So I'm going to start with my two vertical lines. These are going to be the ends of my TV. Now I'm going to use my vanishing point. I'm going to draw from my vanishing point the diagonal lines that will make the top and bottom of my TV. Okay, so you can see there's going to be a little bit of an angle because this is something flat against the wall. So if it's flat against the wall, it needs to follow a similar diagonal that my wall follows in order for it to look like it's flat. Okay, so there's my TV up against my wall, or whatever you want it to be. You can add other objects. Maybe you have a dresser or something else in your room like that you want to add. Let's see here. Let's make a dresser. So again, my basic shape, I'm going to think of the side of the dresser here as a rectangle. Okay. I'm going to go back to my pencil here, find my vanishing point, follow my corners of my shape through to my vanishing point. So I have one corner, bottom corner, and then this third corner here. You don't have to do this corner unless you want it to be a see-through object. Okay, so let's just go over those diagonals I've made from each corner. Okay, and now I'm going to make the parallel, which is going to be also a vertical line. This one is a horizontal line, so the parallel is also a horizontal line. And now I have a little dresser leaning up against my wall. If I want to make dresser drawers, those also need to follow the vanishing point. Again, if you keep your hand pushed against your paper, it helps you to have a steadier line and to keep the accuracy of the angle. Okay, so now I have a little dresser sitting behind my chair. Other things obviously depends on what's in there. Maybe there's objects you want to add. Maybe you want to have something going on top of your TV. Maybe you want to add some more details to your bed design. Any sort of thing. As long as you're making sure to draw with your basic shapes and that you are always following your vanishing point if it's going to be something in the distance. So for example, I started with my rectangle, followed my corners to the vanishing point to get the top of my rectangle, right? Think about it as a three-dimensional cube or a three-dimensional rectangle. You would see the top, you might see the side. It all depends on where it's sitting in the space. All right, so I hope you guys enjoy this. Please send me a picture of your awesome drawings of your room, and I can't wait to see them.